welcome to Logan Sounds Off, where I talk about books, music, and a whole lot more. I'm your host, Logan Kelly. Hello and welcome back to Logan Sounds Off. Today on my podcast, I am having one of the coolest and one of the, I'd say, oddest rock bands that are coming onto the scene, onto the Irish music scene at the moment. And you might have seen me do an album review on their latest album, Mind Yourself. So make sure to check that out after you watch this. And today I am interviewing The Scratch. How are you guys?
Hello.
Thank you so much for joining me today. It's great to chat to you.
Thanks for having me, man.
So for those who don't know yourselves and also The Scratch's music and what kind of genre you guys are, could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
We play acoustic instruments, acoustic guitars and a cajon, but we try and play heavy metal music with those instruments, and that's what we've been doing since the start, and it's evolved since then. But I guess that's what it is, kind of like Irish heavy metal music with acoustic instruments.
I completely agree. Even now watching you guys grow regarding your albums from the start and now with Mind Yourself, you can definitely see how it's evolved, as you said there. So there's a lot of kind of influences there regarding it's slightly traditional. There's traditional tones there, but as well, as you were saying, very much heavy metal at some parts as well. So what kind of musical influences did you guys have growing up?
Would have been a lot of metal originally. Sorry, were you going to take that? I think myself, Jordo, and Doc would have been the metalheads growing up, listening to the likes of Metallica, Pantera, which then went into like Lamb of God, Chimera, Machine Head, all those bands. And then, but meanwhile, he was living up in County Monaghan, playing along to the Red Hot Chili Peppers as well.
Exclusively the Red Hot Chili Peppers and the Meters and like kind of funk influences and stuff. So I was a bit scared when I started playing with the lads first. They're a bit scary metal boys.
We were big scary boys.
You start playing with it, and he was like, "What?"
Yeah, I had to. They said, "We'll beat you up if you don't start using the Plex." So that's it.
That's brilliant. And now you got, sorry?
What kind of influences do you hear? I'm curious.
Yeah.
Well, the first song that I properly actually made an impact on me was 1 Inch Man by Caius. And ever since then, I've gone on to listen to everything. I listen to jazz, I listen to rock, I listen to stoner rock, a lot of experimental music, funk, blues, world music. I like music in general. It's not very exclusive regarding genres, but no, that would be kind of so Caius and stoner rock would have been what got me into music.
That's one of the coolest answers I could have ever heard.
Have you ever checked out a band called Elder out of curiosity? Elder, they're called.
No, never heard of them.
They might be up your alley. There's an album called Wild Roots Stirring. Dead Roots Stirring by Elder. Worth checking out if you're into stoner rock. They're kind of like, they've kind of got that desert rock buzz, but they've got a really beautiful sense of melody as well. Not the stoner bands don't, but just they really, I don't know, the melodies they pick really, they really buzz, they really resonate with us anyway. We're big fans of them, so worth checking out if you're into the stoner rock buzz.
I'll make sure to check that out, and I'll let you know what I think of it. So,
Yeah, look at it.
And you guys, even there, you listen to we heard funk, we heard metal. It's all very, very different stuff. So what kind of instruments did you learn growing up?
I kind of did the usual. I started just on acoustic and piano. My mom, God bless her, made me go to like cultist lessons and stuff and start playing in groups. So it was kind of more that traditional route. And then once I got into school, I just started trying to play in bands with friends instead of bands. And I was awful at guitar. So they put me on bass guitar. And then from then on, I kind of just was more focused on guitar or on bass.
And
So,
Sorry.
did you play much in school, guys? Or did you play with friends beforehand? Or were you very much kind of, did you play music by yourself?
You used to have to play in a band together in school.
Yeah, we would have well me and Lango met when we were about 14 in school, second year of school, and I think we were only listening to music at that stage. I had started learning the guitar, and Lango, had you even started drum lessons?
I started when I was 12.
Yeah, so we had just kind of started getting lessons, but we didn't even own an instrument. I borrowed my uncle's acoustic. He had this old Yamaha acoustic, which I'd love to get my hands on again, but he took it back. But I was going to lessons and learning on that, and then we both got our first, like, he got his first drum kit, and I got my first electric guitar the same Christmas. So like that was like, I don't know what age we were for. It was like,
I don't know,
around that year, maybe 14,
I managed to convince the folks to get a drum kit about like 6. I think I was like 13 when I got there.
Yeah, I think it was like first.
I think it was a while before we started becoming mates, though. I think we'd already been playing our respective instruments for about a year.
Yeah,
and then
I do remember that one Christmas though that we all got it.
What did you get?
The good shit.
The Jackson.
Yeah, I got the Jackson, and I got my amp, and then like I went over to yours, like we like jammed in your shed. That was like the first time, and but we were young, yeah, we were like that age, and then we used to do, I guess like the idea of playing gigs was like totally way too far fetched at that point, but in school when we got to transition year, so we would have been what 16. They did a thing called song school, where these producers came in and they would like teach you about songwriting and recording in the studio, blah blah blah. So we got to write. We basically wrote like 2 or 3 songs, and then we got to record them in the studio. It was amazing. But the best thing was we got to like play a gig in the school to all our parents. And
that was the best gig you've ever played.
Oh man. So but it was like when I think back to it, it was like fucking, it was very important, I'd say, to we were terrified, but it kind of kicked it all off really. We were like, this is fucking, whatever this is, I'm gonna keep doing this, you know.
We were also the only metal band at that particular talent show.
Yeah,
you can imagine what kind of reception it got.
It was confused faces.
Yeah. So it's funny that you say they're back like in transition year. You're terrified of the whole idea of playing live, and yet what really, like, when a video of some of you guys like busking racked up 1 million views of you guys playing live. It's funny to think about now. But when that did happen, and when you went viral, how did you feel?
I think when we started jamming together, myself and Lango started jamming together after the metal band that we were playing in together kind of stopped. Started jamming in the kitchen of our house, and there was definitely a feeling of like, this is cool, this is different, it was exciting. And then Doc joined, and we kind of started playing, but it was hard to know if it was just we were excited by it. And then we created like a Facebook page, and then people seemed to really latch onto it. And then when that video went viral, it was kind of like, people are this. We didn't know what it was, and it was very raw and mental and stuff. It seemed to be a thing of like, there's something exciting about this to people, and we didn't know what it was. It was kind of rhythmic. I think a lot, to be honest with you, I think a lot of it was we all had long hair at the time, and we were moshing, because that's the way we were used to playing, was just moshing and playing riffs. But because we had acoustic instruments, and because Lango was on the box, it was just different enough to make people go, what is this? I haven't seen this before. But it was still surprising to us, you know. It was still one of these things of like, I thought we were just excited by this, and then it seemed to be this thing that people are going, oh, this is cool. And I think since then we're still trying to figure out what's cool about it, and why people are, you know what I mean? Why people are into it. But yeah.
there's definitely a buzz there because afterwards, a little while after all this, you invited to do a show in Whelan's. And knowing like all the unbelievable talent there, things are going very fast for you guys. But just going back to Whelan's, what was it like playing live at such a famous venue?
I think we felt a bit out of place at that one because we nearly turned the gig down because at the time we were a busking outfit, and knowing how gigs go, we were afraid that it wouldn't translate well given the gear we had. So, and then sure enough, when we played the gig, strings were breaking left, right, and center, and like, you know what I mean? Like it was a bit.
We didn't know what we didn't know what we were at.
It was a bit of a like it could have been a bit of a car crash, but then we relied on like I guess the busking initiative and that like we just started engaging the crowd and you know, having a bit of crack with them while the lads would change strings, and it just became this very collective experience that was good crack. But it was cool that it was just of all venues, Whelan's, you know, that we were asked to do, and the fact that it was a full room, we were just surprised, man. But it was good crack.
It was good.
I do remember having good crack.
It's hilarious to look back on.
Yeah,
you know.
I was on the other side of the gig.
Were you there?
I was yeah. This was before I had joined the band, so I was there as a supporter.
What do you remember of being in the car crash?
There was a few moments.
There was like,
but like Lango's saying again, I think that's maybe part of the charm of the band is that you lads were used to things going wrong at that point and kind of made it part of the show. And I think people really feel like they're involved in the show rather than this very professional outfit coming up and just playing the song start to finish and then the show's over and you go home. It really feels like you're part of the gig when you were watching car crashes.
we were learning because we had played in a metal band, like myself and Doc were playing guitar, Lango's playing drums. We never spoke to a crowd. We always just played riffs and played drums, and that was it. It was the singer spoke to the crowd. So around then, that Whelan gig, we were still learning how to even speak to a crowd, which is way more terrifying than singing, I think. And so I remember even planning like, we could say this before this song, and it was all very just like trying to be natural by being very unnatural. It was hilarious.
I think when the wheels fell off though, we were grand about it. It wasn't awkward, like we were just kind of like,
yeah.
Sure, we knew this would happen anyway.
What was it? We used to Wolfpack.
Oh
It's
yeah.
like anytime, like, because I used to break so many strings, and then the lads would just burst into Dean Town. And then I was like, and then language said, everyone. We were just turning.
Don't look over there.
Yeah, it's like, over there. Like, I got so fast at changing strings because I can't listen to Dean Town for the 5th time in a row.
The interlude.
Yeah.
I can. Although you say it could have been a car crash there, it did sound like a great night, and it really did kickstart a lot of things for you. And when you first released your EP, Old Songs, you know, you were saying there you got some really good response at your Facebook page, but obviously there's a difference playing live and what reaction you'll get to an actual studio record or release, sorry. So what was the response you got from these fans that you'd been building up online?
Was this to the Old Songs EP?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't really remember the response, but I do remember we did a music video for The Road to Ballyshannon, which was a song off that. So that was kind of like, that was like our 4th music video at that point, really. But I think the idea behind those songs was just to take the best of what we'd written up to that point, which was like mostly instrumental, and just put it on an EP and then move on from it, really, just like, you know, close the book on that chapter almost and move on. But I think it was important to do that because then that kind of brought in from that moment on we were really focused on bringing vocals in, and then we kind of went on and wrote the next EP after that. But yeah, I don't think it was a massive reaction necessarily, because I still think at that point it was all about going to see us live. And like so, I feel like sometimes that's still the vibe around the band, but definitely back then it was very much oh, you need to go see them live, you need to go see them live. So it kind of kept us ticking along, and I think the road to Ballyshannon was a nice moment of that. But yeah, I think it was the next release that kind of jumped things up a bit.
That actually makes a lot of sense though with Old Songs EP. See, I look at a lot of like band artwork or album artwork and album actual names very literally. So now it makes sense old songs that it was more older songs that you were kind of moving on from. So that actually makes a lot of sense. So after your debut EP, as we were speaking about there, you released The Whole Buzz, Couldn't Give a Rat's, and then Couldn't Leave Our Gaffs, which was a live album. And we spoke a bit about the studio EP there, and we're going to come to Mind Yourself. But I do want to focus on this for a sec. What inspired you to make an actual live album? Were there any bands at the time that you were listening to live albums, or what happened there?
It was Doc's idea. Doc,
Yeah.
we pandemic, middle of pandemic, couldn't gig,
Yeah,
and you were saying just let's throw our money into a live thing.
yeah. Like I think it was coming up on a year since we'd released Couldn't Give a Rat's, and we were obviously we were still in a pandemic at that point, and
Never played it.
yeah, we hadn't played a single gig. We'd done like a couple of like kind of terrible social distance stuff and whatever, but we'd never really played it. And it was coming up on a year, and we were, we'd taken a bit of a couple of months break, and we got back in the new year and just felt like, all right, well, we all still want to do this. So what can we do over the next few months that'll excite us? And I don't know, that makes sense given the circumstances. And yeah, it was a year anniversary. We were like, why don't we just play the whole album start to finish and film it? But like a lot of bands were doing that at the time, but we had done some live streaming stuff during the pandemic, but the idea with this was to like put all our throw everything we had at it production wise. So every bit of money we had at the time went into the production of it, the sound, the mix, the master, the direction, and the post production of the whole thing. So yeah, I think it was just something for us to do, and the timing was good with it being a year since we'd released the album, so it kind of made sense. It made sense in that way, and then we just decided if we're going to do it, we're going to do it as big and as well as we can.
It's worth mentioning though that Doc is a videographer by trade, so he kind of knew how best to spend the money, because we only had so much of a budget, but Doc had a vision for how we could make the most out of the money, and I think that's like why it's as good as it is, considering how much we spent on it, but
Yeah.
so.
And then so what was the production like audio wise in comparison to the studio album? Was there much of a difference, or was there a lot of a difference?
Production on that live one?
Yes, sorry. The live album.
Yeah, I guess it was just recorded in a live setting in a warehouse. So
we recorded it live. The Give a Rats was multi-tracked, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
The actual album was multi-tracked. So drums are put down, bass put down, guitars are put down, vocals all isolated from each other, separate. But then we played through the album sitting facing each other as we were on the video. So it was the first time we had actually recorded, and it does sound. And then we got our friend Aidan Cunningham to mix it. It actually came out sounding fantastic, and I think that was a big thing with as Doc was saying, like everyone was kind of live streaming at this time because there was nothing else you could do. But our music doesn't really lend itself to raw live streaming. We're because we're such metalheads, we're really into sonics and like making things sound as big as they can and making things sound as punchy and powerful as they can. So I think to do the album justice and to have a proper, product that you can go back and watch even now and be proud of it. We had to do it in that way. So we set ourselves up in a circle, had the camera track around us, recorded ourselves live, and then got in post production. It was mixed, and our friend Ado made it sound really, really good then. So it came out great, actually.
That's fantastic. And then also, like, you've released Aerials, the single with the RTE Concert Orchestra. How did that come about?
James Vince McMorrow asked us to do it as part of his show. He was asked to curate like a show for what was the soundtrack to My Life. RTE asked him to do the show, and he wanted to have a metal reference in there, and he asked us would we be interested in covering a metal song and performing it with the RTE orchestra. And so we said yeah, and he said like do what you want as long as it's from the 90s or the 2000s. So we eventually landed on Aerials, and it came together very quickly after that. Like the arrangement we came up with, Jordo started noodling around with an arrangement, and then we went into practice, came up with a structure, sent it off to a composer who then wrote the orchestral music around it. And I think after 2 drafts, we were like, this sounds class. And then the next thing, we just went into a big room with the orchestra and like did 4 takes of it, and that was it. And I think like the take that you see is like the 3rd or 4th take, and so it all just came together really seamlessly, and we were delighted with how it turned out. But James Vince McMorrow was the man who got the wheels rolling on that one.
That's really cool. And your most recent album, which is called Mind Yourself, and definitely, if you're watching this and you haven't, or listening to this, and if you haven't listened to the album, I would recommend you do before we start talking about the album. But it's incredible, and it has a great name and great album artwork and a great feel to it, especially like I have it on vinyl, so I got the full experience, and it looks really, really cool. But where did you get the inspiration for the album being called Mind Yourself?
It was an early working title that we were thinking of like I think in our past on Couldn't Give a Rat's there is kind of a like pull your jocks up, and some of the older songs have kind of a lot of self chat, talking to yourself, trying to get yourself through the day, or self affirmation stuff. If you're not feeling great, pull your jocks up, whatever. And there's a bit of that on Mind Yourself as well. It kind of finds itself into the lyrics a lot, like us telling ourselves things are all good and truck on, So I guess that's the idea of Mind Yourself seemed to fit that kind of stuff. And it's to me, I consider it a very Irish kind of term. Like it's the way my mom says goodbye on the phone every time. It's always mind yourself. So that's what she says. So it's very comforting in that way. And but we did go through several other titles, working titles, and then we ended up rounding back to that at the end. And I do like it. I think it's a nice message. Do you know what I mean? It's fairly you can apply that to anybody, And well, again, I think that's it, isn't it? Like the lyrical content.
Yeah, I think
fit the
Banshee has the lyric "Mind Yourself."
Oh yeah,
which might have like brought it into
that was
conversation, and we all immediately were like, oh yeah, and then we were kind of like, then we started to have doubts about it. We were like, "That's this mad cheesy, I don't know." And then like we sat down and went through the lyrical content of each song, and there was just this underlying theme of, just what's the word I'm looking for? But there was just this underlying theme of just like affirmations, talking about life and death, self-doubt, all of these things, and it just Mind Yourself just seemed to tie it all together nicely. So we ended up just running with it. And then, do you know what? The artwork, I think when we were working with a typographer at this point, when we were reconsidering it, and then he sent back a draft of like the artwork, which is the artwork we went with. And we were like, yeah, Mind Yourself just works really well with this, you know.
Yeah, we had changed it. We had Pig Iron was one, and then we had changed the Blackguard. And then the artist came back, Aidan Cochran, and he said, I really like Mind Yourself, I'm going to roll with this. So it was kind of him actually that brought it back to Mind Yourself, and he had already started working on the artwork that is the artwork now. So that's it. But actually, yeah, Banshee, you're dead right. That's what came from.
I think Mind Yourself was a working title for Banshee.
Was it?
Yeah, before, I think it was, I remember, it was like one of the big lyrics in the tune.
Yeah,
You can call Mind Yourself and then be a good fucking album title. Yeah.
Banshee, though, is actually a pretty haunting piece to start off the album with. I remember when the album just came out. So, like, as a 12-year-old, I do not have access to music news at all. So, like, if an album comes out, I'm like, oh, they released an album. So when your album came out, I was like, whoa, the scratch of a new album. And I started listening to it. And the first track, obviously, that I heard was Banshee, and it was incredible. And it was a really good piece to start off the album. But there is no doubt that Mind Yourself is completely unique to anything else you've done. So what was it like recording the album?
It was
Yeah, tough out. It was just
A painful struggle.
I loved every second of it.
no, it covered the entire spectrum of emotions. We'll say it was definitely a roller coaster. All right, but
and we were very busy at the time as well, which was part of, I think, the charm as well. We were doing the UK Irish run of tours, which was quite busy. So we were coming from weeks of gigging into the studio for a week and back in there. So it was just a very intense kind of time to do.
It was a very important time for us because we had what James McMorrow referred to as studio trauma from our past experiences in the studio, where we had just our communication had broke down. We found ourselves trying to write songs, and then things would just get a bit awkward because we wouldn't agree and stuff, and then we'd stop. So it was really just like we had to like unlearn a lot of bad habits from the past, and with the help of James and the two Jameses, kind of with them being there and mediating the whole thing and being our like counselors essentially, just telling us to stop getting in our own way basically when we were, and to kind of bring the best out of us and to give us more confidence, because I think our confidence at the time was very low. And I don't know, it was coming out of the pandemic, not having gigged. I think we had built up a bit of steam before the pandemic, and then it just kind of, like every band, we felt very deflated. But I think it was a really important process, but it wasn't easy. And I'm so glad it went the way it was, because now thinking about our next album, we all feel confident. We all feel a lot more sure of ourselves. We're very excited to get working on music. But back when we were writing Mind Yourself before going into the studio, it was like there was a lot of anxiety about going into a room together, if I'm honest. So it was a really, we trudged through it, and we came out a lot better as a result,
Yeah, you can hear on the album that it took a long time, but it was worth it in all fairness. How it came out, and like, I sense that the album is slightly like a story, nearly, that in the position that the songs are put. Now, having Shoes and Blackguard right next to each other completely threw me off. But apart from that, the album does have a story-like quality. So is that true? Is Mind Yourself one of those albums that you listen to in order, or can you shuffle it up, do you think?
So when the album was officially released, that was the first time I listened to the album since like we sent in the final mixes, myself and yourself, was it? And yeah, we just put and it was the first time listening on vinyl, and I really enjoyed the arc of the album, I have to say. But having said that, it's not exactly like the most cohesive sounding album ever recorded. So I'd say it's one of those albums that you could just dive in anywhere. But I was pleasantly surprised at how well it flowed when I listened from start to finish on the vinyl.
I think you're
So
in
both would be the answer.
You're in it for so long. It's kind of hard to it's hard to give an answer because you're in it for so long and you're really diving into the weeds on which song should go where and like why certain songs follow each other. That I think by the end of it, it's kind of hard to have an objective call on that. But yeah, we had that. We took a break from the album for like a month or two while it was getting mixed, and then we sat down and listened to it that night on vinyl, and it definitely felt like there was a plot line to it.
Yeah, we were definitely like,
yes, it was actually good. We actually did a good album.
We got away with it.
It worked.
So, I mean, that's all it takes to make a great album, and it's a fantastic LP. And my favorite actually song on the album, like I love them all, but Shoes would be my favorite because like I was doing something like just randomly. I think I was tidying up my room and I was listening to the record, and Shoes came on, and I just stopped, and I just listened to it, and it was just fantastic. So moving on now from your latest album, I'm gonna ask you just some quick fire questions before we finish up. The first one I'm gonna ask you is, with your inspirations, you have a varied kind of very eclectic mix. Do you have anything that you're listening to currently?
It's a great question.
I listened to Idol's new album this morning again. It's definitely grown on me. And I've been listening to a lot of cinematic orchestra. That's in the last week. They're my things. And a band called Knocked Loose from Louisville, Kentucky.
listening to Power Age by AC/DC.
Come on. Oh, AC/DC's back on the car.
AC/DC's in Steezy Rock. It's in circuit big time at the minute because the band we're on tour with at the minute are a big AC/DC band, and it's rubbing, and they're covering AC/DC as well, really well.
Really?
So it's coming off in me big style here. So I've been getting in the old AC/DC last week.
We listened to
just
a band called Hallis. They're from, I don't know, are they Swedish? But they're like, it's like 70s prog, but they're a current band. They're playing like 70s kind of prog, and they have like a lot of real clean Tin Lizzy style guitar, dual leads, really satisfying, and amazing vocals. And also I've been listening to Pussifer, which is Maynard from Tool's other project. And their it's like acoustic and real rhythmic and real baritone low vocals. I never gave them a chance before, and I've just started this week listening to them, and it's kind of blowing my mind a little bit. So that's what I'm on.
You know, I said, oh yeah. The fact of the matter is, I only know one song. Like out of all their discography, I know one called Tumbleweed, and it's a really great track. But I need to listen to more of them. So you're actually at the moment, if any of the viewers don't know or listeners, the Scratch are currently on tour. How is the tour going, guys?
Unreal.
Amazing.
It's amazing, man. The lads are being amazing. The Dropkick, the band that we're out supporting, are being incredibly nice to us and kind of looking after us and getting us in front of a lot of people that probably wouldn't have heard of us without their help. So definitely like, there's no way we would have paid Pennsylvania to 4,000 people. Like, so they've been very sound at like getting our foot in the door, and it's just been it's been a dream. So
it has been a dream. It's like this is my favorite tour we've done so far.
Yeah, me too.
It's amazing
because we're not organized.
Or headliner.
That is fantastic to hear. And before we go, there is a question that I'd like to that I'd like to know. And you guys have grown up with music. You started playing musical instruments at a young age. You played in schools, everything. You guys have traveled throughout your whole lives with music. So for anybody who's younger, teenager maybe, and wants to be a musician, what tips would you give them?
It's hard to not be cliche.
The big one I'd say, it's not even any advice, but just like keep the faith. I think if there's one thing you can even hear from the story with the lads, how this band came about, it's like you never know what is going to be the thing that brings you to another level, or that brings you like your new bandmate or your new song or your new favorite gig or whatever it is. So I think just keep the head down. If it's something that you're really passionate about, it'll work out. But keep the head down, and I guess have a bit of faith.
That is solid. Like persistence and consistency are the two, like, for sure. I mean,
I was gonna say, but even if you don't believe in yourself, just keep doing it anyway. I think that's like, because people always say just believe in yourself. It's hard. You can't force that upon yourself if you don't internally, like, you know. But I think if you just do it, if you really want to do it, just keep doing it. And then after a certain amount of time, you'll be in the right place at the right time. I do believe that, you know.
Yeah.
You there, Brian?
I am.
What's your Brian? Come in here a second.
We have a very experienced music industry man here. This is Brian Larkin, who's been driving and teching, and he's looking after all of our
spiritual guide. What's your advice to young musicians, Brian?
Young musicians.
Just stick at it. Practice. I know it's the cliche stuff, but just stick at it and try and have everybody has a vision in their heart, like, of what they really want to go. They want to be, you know, want to be a guitarist in a band, playing in front of big crowds and whatever, and making nice music. So just keep following that dream. It's like what you put into the future, you can work towards it. It's like manifestation. And be positive in your heart about it. And you will get people who knock you and people who begrudge you. Just don't listen to them, you know. And then your inner voice as well. If you have doubt within yourself, just, you know, you can tell that voice to shut up. You know what I mean? And you know what I'm saying? And just stick at it and keep going. And I was kind of eavesdropping there. Your interview technique is very, very good. I'm very impressed.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And guys, the tips were very good there. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Brian, for joining us there.
I was gonna add into the advice thing. I think the most practical advice I got was like take the people you meet along the way. If there's something you really love, you really want to do, you know, take your interactions with the people in that world very, very seriously. So like, you know, if you want to be in music and play music, you know, absolutely have the you know, the persistence and have, you know, if you really love it and you stick in it, you know, it'll work out. But also all the people you meet along the way, I think is a really important part of anything, not just music, just like any sort of journey in life. And I guess it just comes down to just being a nice person. Even when you really don't want to be a nice person, just, you know, take that side of it really seriously, because that person you met 3 years previous, that you just had a nice conversation with, they might have seen something in you, or you might have seen something in them that could open up a door for you down the line. And even talking to a lot of the crew members on any tour I've been on, but particularly this one, like, you know, it's often just like, if you're, you know, the people in the best positions are the nicest and hardest working people, and they'll often give their friends or the other people that they respect and that they, you know, that they have good things to say about, they'll be the first person they call for another opportunity. So it's just like, I feel like being a good person, a respectful, nice person is like almost, you know, that's a really big one.
Well, that is actually very important and very good advice. So thank you so much, guys, for those tips. And that was my final question. So thank you so much for joining me on my podcast. It was great meeting you, because I've been following you guys for some time, and I am very excited to hear more from the scratch. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thanks a lot, Logan. Big up.
Here's
to
all
you.
the
See you at the gig.
Thanks so much, guys. Bye. I hope you enjoyed listening to this episode of Logan Sounds Off. You can follow me on X, Facebook and Instagram at Logan Sounds Off. And don't forget to subscribe and not miss any more cool episodes. Bye guys!